Let me ask you something before we begin. When did you last drive somewhere at night and feel completely confident doing it? Not cautious, not gripping the wheel a little tighter than necessary, not waiting an extra moment at junctions because the headlights of oncoming cars were leaving you slightly disoriented, but genuinely confident, the way driving at night used to feel, when your eyes adjusted quickly and the road ahead was clear and you did not think twice about it. For a significant number of people over 60, that feeling has become a memory. And the change was gradual enough that most people cannot point to exactly when it happened. One year they were fine. A few years later they found themselves avoiding evening drives, or asking someone else to take over, or canceling plans that would require driving home after dark. Or perhaps it is not night driving. Perhaps it is the moment at the end of the day when the light in the room shifts and reading becomes harder, when text that was manageable at noon becomes effortful at 8 in the evening, when your eyes feel like they are working to do something that should be automatic. These experiences are enormously common in older adults, and the explanation most people are given, if they are given one at all, is simply that this is what happens to eyes with age. The muscles weaken, the lens stiffens, the retina becomes less sensitive. Accept it, manage it with stronger glasses, and come back next year for another check. That explanation is not wrong. Age does change the eye in real and significant ways, but it is incomplete. And its incompleteness matters, because the parts of the story it leaves out are the parts that are most actionable. What most people are never told is that a significant proportion of the visual deterioration associated with aging is driven not simply by the passage of time, but by specific, addressable biological processes. Oxidative damage accumulating in the lens and retina over decades. Nutritional insufficiencies in the compounds that the eye uses to maintain its light-sensitive cells. The gradual depletion of a visual pigment called rhodopsin that your eyes depend on for seeing in low light. And the slow degradation of the macula, the central zone of the retina responsible for sharp, detailed vision, as the antioxidant pigments that protect it are not adequately replenished. All of those processes are influenced by what you eat. Specifically, by whether your diet provides the nutrients that the eye uses for its own maintenance and repair. Today, I want to talk about one fruit that has a particularly interesting relationship with eye health, one that has been used for this specific purpose for over 2,000 years in traditional medicine, and that modern research is now examining with a level of scientific seriousness that is producing some compelling findings. That fruit is the goji berry. Before I say anything else about goji berries, I want to make something clear. This is a conversation about nutritional support for eye health. It is not a claim that any fruit can cure eye disease, restore lost vision, or replace the care of an ophthalmologist or optometrist. If you have a diagnosed eye condition, macular degeneration, glaucoma, cataracts, diabetic retinopathy, please continue working with your eye care specialist and bring any dietary changes to their attention. What I am describing today is the role that specific nutrients play in supporting the biological systems the eye uses to maintain itself. Systems that work better when properly nourished and less well when they are not. With that said, let us talk about what is actually happening inside your eyes as you age, because understanding the mechanisms is what makes everything else I share today genuinely useful rather than simply interesting. The human eye is one of the most metabolically active organs in the body. The retina, the light-sensitive tissue lining the back of the eye, has one of the highest oxygen consumption rates of any tissue in the human body per unit of weight. That extraordinary metabolic activity makes it exceptionally vulnerable to oxidative stress, the accumulation of reactive oxygen species that damage cellular structures over time. Every photon of light that enters your eye and hits the retina initiates a chemical reaction. Multiply that by the thousands of light exposures your eyes process every waking hour across decades of life, and you begin to understand the scale of the oxidative challenge your retinal cells are managing continuously. Blue light from screens, ultraviolet light from sun exposure, and ordinary daylight all contribute to this oxidative load. Your eye has natural defenses against this damage. The most important of these is a pair of carotenoid pigments, lutein and zeaxanthin, that accumulate specifically in the macula and act as internal filters, absorbing harmful blue light and providing direct antioxidant protection to the photoreceptor cells beneath them. The concentration of lutein and zeaxanthin in the macula is what gives it its characteristic yellow color. They are sometimes called the macular pigments, and the density of that pigment is one of the most reliable indicators of macular health that researchers have. The problem is that lutein and zeaxanthin are not produced by the body. They must come from food. And the typical diet of most older adults in Western countries provides very little of them. As the diet fails to replenish these pigments over years and decades, macular pigment optical density decreases, the protective filter thins, oxidative damage to the photoreceptors accumulates, and the visual changes that most people attribute simply to aging, reduced contrast sensitivity, difficulty in low light, gradual loss of central sharpness, begin to manifest. This is the nutritional dimension of eye aging that most people have never been told about. And goji berries are one of the most concentrated dietary sources of zeaxanthin available in any food. Let me tell you about this fruit, where it comes from, what it looks like, and why it has the specific properties that make it relevant to this conversation. Goji berries, known in traditional Chinese medicine as wolfberries and in Mandarin as goqi, have been used in Chinese herbal medicine for over 2,000 years. The earliest references to their medicinal use appear in the Shen Nong Ben Cao Jing, the classic of herbal medicine, one of the foundational texts of traditional Chinese medicine, compiled approximately 2,000 years ago. Their use for vision specifically is among the oldest and most consistent applications in that tradition. They were prescribed for dim vision, eye fatigue, and what ancient practitioners described as insufficient liver and kidney energy, the traditional frameworks through which visual health was understood. They grow on a thorny shrub, Lycium barbarum, primarily cultivated in the Ningxia and Xinjiang regions of China, though they are now grown in many parts of the world. The berries are small, roughly the size of a raisin, and when dried, which is the most common form available in Western markets, they are a deep coral red color, slightly wrinkled, with a flavor that is mildly sweet with a faintly bitter or earthy undertone. They are not dramatically sweet, closer in flavor profile to a dried cranberry than a raisin, and they are genuinely pleasant eaten as a snack, mixed into oatmeal or yogurt, or added to salads and warm dishes. Now, the science. The first thing that separates goji berries from most other vision-supporting foods is their zeaxanthin content. Goji berries are among the highest natural dietary sources of zeaxanthin on the planet, containing concentrations that far exceed most other commonly eaten foods. Zeaxanthin is one of the two primary macular pigments I described earlier, and its role in the macula is site-specific. While lutein distributes more broadly across the retina, zeaxanthin concentrates most densely in the very center of the macula, the fovea, which is the zone of maximum visual acuity. This is the part of the retina you use when you read, when you recognize a face, when you look at something with direct, focused attention. The concentration of zeaxanthin in the fovea is not incidental, it is functional. Zeaxanthin absorbs blue light before it reaches the photoreceptors directly beneath it, protecting them from the photochemical damage that would otherwise accumulate. It also quenches reactive oxygen species generated by light exposure before they can damage the cellular structures of the photoreceptors. And this is the part that is particularly relevant to the visual changes most older adults describe. Adequate macular zeaxanthin is associated with better contrast sensitivity and better performance in low light conditions. The optical filtering function of the macular pigment directly improves the signal-to-noise ratio of the visual system in challenging lighting conditions. A clinical study published in the journal Optometry and Vision Science followed healthy older adults who consumed goji berries daily for 90 days. Specifically, 28 grams of dried goji berries 5 days per week. The results showed a statistically significant increase in macular pigment optical density, the direct measure of the zeaxanthin and lutein concentration in the macula, compared to a control group. This is a meaningful finding because it demonstrates that dietary goji berry consumption can actually rebuild the macular pigment that has been depleted over years of inadequate intake. Not just maintain it, measurably increase it. The same study also found that participants in the goji group showed no progression of soft drusen, the early deposits in the macula that are associated with age-related macular degeneration risk, while the control group showed an increase. Soft drusen accumulation is one of the earliest observable changes in macular degeneration. The fact that 90 days of goji berry consumption was associated with no progression, while the control group showed advancement, is a finding that deserves serious attention. Let me now address the night vision dimension specifically, because this is where the biology gets particularly interesting and where the mechanism is most clearly understood. Night vision depends on a specific photochemical process in the rod cells of the retina, the photoreceptors responsible for detecting light in low light conditions. The rods contain a light-sensitive pigment called rhodopsin, and rhodopsin is the molecule at the center of your ability to see in dim light. Here is how it works. When a photon of light strikes rhodopsin, the molecule undergoes a chemical change. It bleaches. This bleaching triggers the neural signal that your brain interprets as vision. But bleached rhodopsin cannot detect another photon. It must be regenerated, chemically restored to its light-sensitive form, before the rod cell can fire again. The regeneration of rhodopsin is a vitamin A-dependent process. Vitamin A, specifically in its retinaldehyde form, is the chromophore at the heart of the rhodopsin molecule. Without adequate vitamin A, rhodopsin regeneration is slowed. The rod cells take longer to recover after light exposure. Your eyes take longer to adapt from bright conditions to dark ones. And in sustained low light conditions, the visual signal becomes weaker and less reliable. This is the biological basis of night blindness, one of the earliest and most well-documented signs of vitamin A deficiency. And subclinical vitamin A insufficiency, levels that do not produce overt night blindness, but that are below optimal, is more common in older adults than is generally appreciated, particularly in people whose diets have become less varied with age. Goji berries provide beta-carotene, the precursor to vitamin A that your body converts as needed, alongside a range of other carotenoids that support retinal health. The beta-carotene in goji berries provides the raw material for vitamin A synthesis, supporting the rhodopsin cycle and the eye's ability to regenerate its light-sensitive pigment after exposure to light. But goji berries do something beyond simply providing beta-carotene. Their unique polyphenol profile, including betaine, zeaxanthin dipalmitate, and a range of lycium-specific polysaccharides, provides direct antioxidant protection to the rod cells themselves, reducing the oxidative damage that accumulates during the rhodopsin cycle and protecting the cellular machinery responsible for its regeneration. The practical result of this is what practitioners of traditional Chinese medicine observed and documented for centuries: improved adaptation to darkness, reduced eye fatigue in low light conditions, and better visual performance at night. What they understood empirically through careful observation over generations, modern photoreceptor biology is now explaining at the molecular level. There is also a third mechanism worth discussing, one that relates specifically to the experience of eye focus and the difficulty many older adults have with near vision and reading in lower light. The lens of the eye, the clear, flexible structure that changes shape to focus at different distances, depends on a precise optical clarity that is maintained by specific proteins called crystallins. Over time, oxidative damage to these crystalline proteins causes them to aggregate, to clump together in a way that reduces the transparency of the lens and contributes to the early stages of cataract formation. Even before a clinically significant cataract develops, this protein aggregation reduces the quality of the optical image the lens transmits to the retina, reducing contrast, increasing scatter, and making the focusing process less precise. The antioxidants in goji berries, particularly zeaxanthin, beta-carotene, and the lycium polysaccharides, provide direct protective effects to the lens proteins, reducing the rate of oxidative damage that drives crystalline aggregation. Several animal studies and a growing number of human observational studies have found associations between higher dietary zeaxanthin intake and lower rates of lens opacity. The mechanism is straightforward. The lens accumulates zeaxanthin from the diet, where it provides antioxidant protection to the crystalline proteins, slowing the process by which the lens loses its clarity over time. Think of it this way. Your eye is, in optical terms, a camera. The lens is the optical element that focuses the image. The retina is the sensor that captures it. The macular pigment is the filter that protects the sensor from overexposure. And the rhodopsin in the rod cells is the low-light sensitivity system that allows you to see when illumination is limited. Goji berries provide nutritional support to all four of these components simultaneously, protecting the lens from oxidative clouding, rebuilding the macular pigment filter, supporting the retinal sensor's antioxidant defenses, and providing the raw material for rhodopsin regeneration. That is a remarkably comprehensive nutritional profile for a single small fruit. And it is the reason that goji berries occupy their prominent place in the traditional medicine systems that observed their effects over centuries before modern science arrived to explain them. How do you use them? Let me be specific and practical. The research showing meaningful effects on macular pigment optical density used 28 grams of dried goji berries 5 days per week. That is approximately a small handful, about a quarter of a cup of dried berries. This is an entirely achievable amount and does not require any significant culinary effort. The simplest approach, and the one I would suggest starting with, is to eat a small handful of dried goji berries as a morning or mid-morning snack. Plain, straight from the packet. They are pleasant enough to eat this way, and the habit is easy to sustain because it requires no preparation. If you prefer to incorporate them into food, they work beautifully stirred into plain yogurt or overnight oats in the morning. They rehydrate slightly in yogurt and become soft and flavorful. A tablespoon of dried goji berries in a bowl of oatmeal, alongside some blueberries and walnuts, creates a breakfast that is, from an eye health standpoint, remarkably well constructed. The goji providing zeaxanthin and beta-carotene, the blueberries providing anthocyanins that support retinal blood flow, and the walnuts providing omega-3 fatty acids that support the photoreceptor cell membranes. Evening consumption has a theoretical advantage in the context of the rhodopsin regeneration mechanism. The eye does much of its photoreceptor maintenance and pigment replenishment during sleep, and having the relevant nutrients circulating during that repair window makes biological sense. Either timing works. What matters most is consistency. Daily or near-daily consumption over weeks and months, not occasional use. The carotenoids in goji berries, like all carotenoids, are fat-soluble. They are absorbed significantly better when consumed alongside a small amount of dietary fat. A few walnuts, a small amount of yogurt, a drizzle of olive oil on a salad that includes goji berries. Any of these provides the fat that facilitates carotenoid absorption. Eating goji berries on a completely empty stomach with no fat present reduces how much of the zeaxanthin and beta-carotene you actually absorb. The form matters too. Dried goji berries, the whole dried fruit, preserve the carotenoids well and are the form used in the research showing macular pigment benefits. Fresh goji berries are less commonly available in Western markets and offer similar nutrition. What to be careful about are heavily processed goji products, goji juice cocktails with added sugar, goji extracts in supplement form without standardization, or products where the goji content is minimal and the sugar content is significant. For anyone managing blood sugar, anyone with diabetes, prediabetes, or insulin resistance, check labels carefully and choose products with no added sugar. The natural sugar content of dried goji berries at the portion sizes discussed is modest, but added sugars in processed products are a different matter entirely. Let me also address something I want to be honest about. The research on goji berries and eye health, while genuinely promising, is still developing. The studies that have been published are of good quality, randomized, controlled, with direct measurement of macular pigment optical density. But they are not yet as numerous as the research base behind some other nutritional interventions. The evidence is compelling enough that I consider daily goji berry consumption worth recommending to patients concerned about their long-term visual health. It is not yet at the level where I would describe the case as definitively settled. What I can say with confidence is this: the mechanisms are real and well understood. The nutrients in goji berries, zeaxanthin, beta-carotene, the lycium polysaccharides, have documented roles in retinal biology, lens health, and rhodopsin regeneration that are not disputed. The question of how much daily dietary consumption moves the clinical needle, over what time frame, and for whom, these are questions the research is actively working to answer with more precision. In the meantime, the risk profile of eating a small handful of dried goji berries daily is essentially nil for most people. They are a food, not a pharmaceutical. The cost is modest. The palatability is pleasant. The nutritional value beyond the eye-specific compounds is meaningful. Goji berries are also a source of vitamin C, iron, zinc, and polysaccharides with immune-modulating properties that have their own research support. One note for anyone on warfarin: goji berries have been reported in case studies to interact with warfarin, potentially enhancing its anticoagulant effect. If you are on warfarin, please speak with your doctor before adding goji berries to your daily diet. At the portion sizes discussed, this is likely a modest interaction, but it warrants medical awareness. Now, let me put this in its broader context, because while goji berries are the focus of today's conversation, they are most effective as part of a nutritional approach to eye health that supports multiple systems simultaneously. The eye-supporting nutritional ecosystem includes leafy green vegetables, spinach, kale, collard greens, which are the richest dietary sources of lutein, the complement to zeaxanthin in the macular pigment. If goji berries are your primary dietary source of zeaxanthin, pairing them with regular leafy green consumption ensures you are also maintaining adequate lutein levels. Colorful vegetables and fruits broadly, carrots, bell peppers, sweet potatoes, tomatoes, provide beta-carotene and lycopene that support retinal health through independent antioxidant pathways. Oily fish, salmon, sardines, mackerel, provide omega-3 fatty acids, particularly DHA, which is a structural component of photoreceptor cell membranes, and which supports the physical integrity of the retinal cells that are doing the work of vision. Beyond nutrition, several lifestyle factors have well-documented effects on long-term eye health that I want to mention briefly because they amplify the benefit of any nutritional intervention. UV protection. Wearing sunglasses that block UVA and UVB light reduces the cumulative oxidative load on the lens and retina significantly. Blue light management. Not because screens are catastrophic to eye health, but because extended screen time without breaks maintains a sustained oxidative stress on the macular cells that good nutrition is working to counteract. The 20-20-20 rule: every 20 minutes of screen time, looking at something 20 feet away for 20 seconds, provides the periodic rest that allows the ciliary muscle controlling lens shape to recover and reduces eye fatigue. Regular eye examinations, at minimum every 2 years for anyone over 50, annually if you have any risk factors for macular degeneration, glaucoma, or diabetic eye disease, are not optional. Many of the conditions that affect vision in older adults develop silently, without obvious symptoms, until they have progressed significantly. Early detection changes outcomes in ways that late detection does not. And smoking. If you smoke, stopping is the single most impactful thing you can do for your long-term eye health. The association between smoking and age-related macular degeneration is one of the most consistent in ophthalmic epidemiology. The oxidative damage from smoking directly accelerates the very processes that nutrients like zeaxanthin are working to counteract. No dietary intervention compensates for that load adequately. I want to close with something I hope you will carry with you from this conversation. The visual changes that most people accept as inevitable with aging are, to a meaningful degree, influenced by nutrition. The macular pigment that protects your central vision is built from dietary carotenoids. The rhodopsin that enables your night vision depends on dietary vitamin A. The crystalline proteins that keep your lens clear are vulnerable to oxidative damage that dietary antioxidants help mitigate. These are not theoretical relationships. They are functional biochemistry playing out in your eyes every day. You have been feeding your eyes with every meal you have eaten for your entire life, whether intentionally or not. The question is whether what you have been eating has provided what your eyes specifically need. For most people in Western countries, the honest answer is that it has not. Not consistently, not in the amounts that the eye's metabolic demands require. Goji berries are one of the most targeted, most evidence-backed, and most practically accessible ways to begin addressing that gap. 28 grams, 5 days a week, a handful with your morning yogurt or as a mid-morning snack. Consistent, affordable, and supported by both 2,000 years of traditional observation and a growing body of modern clinical research. Your eyes have been working for you every waking moment of your life. They deserve the same thoughtful attention you give to the rest of your health. If this was useful to you, please subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment below telling me, have you tried goji berries before? Have you noticed any change in your vision? And let me know if you are already dealing with a specific eye health challenge. I read every comment, and your questions shape what I cover next. In the next video, I will be talking about a bedtime drink that the research links to reduced dry eye symptoms and improved morning visual clarity, something that many people who struggle with that scratchy, tired eye feeling first thing in the morning will want to hear. I am Dr. Julian Cross. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.